Have you ever walked past an old tree at night and felt something watching you? Not an animal, not a person, but the tree itself, its branches stretching out like arms, its bark creaking like whispers in the dark. Some trees feel alive in a way that's hard to explain. And in the past, there were trees that didn't just stand in silence. They held death itself. They were called hanging trees, places where lives ended, places where screams echoed, ropes swung, and shadows lingered long after the bodies were gone. And the scariest part? People say those echoes never left, that if you stand beneath one on a silent night, you'll still hear the ropes creak. You'll still hear the voices. And if you listen too closely, the tree might not let you leave. When we talk about ghosts or haunted places, most people think of old houses, graveyards, or abandoned asylums. But there's something even older and much darker. The hanging tree. These weren't just random trees. They were chosen because of their strong branches, their tall frame, their ability to hold the weight. And once a life ended there, the tree was never the same again. Think about it. How many times can death touch a place before it leaves a mark? How many screams, how many final breaths, how many desperate prayers can echo in one spot before they're burned into the air around it? That's why people feared these trees, not just because of what they saw in the daylight, but because of what they felt in the dark. A heavy silence, a sudden chill, a sense that you were not standing there alone, even if no one else was around. Tonight, we're going to explore the history, the legends, and the terrifying whispers that still surround the hanging tree. And by the end, you might just wonder if the wind blowing through its branches is really just the wind at all. Centuries ago, before prisons were built in every city, justice looked very different. If someone was accused of stealing, betraying, or even practicing witchcraft, trials, if they happened at all, were quick. And the punishment? Often it was death. But gallows weren't always built for these executions. Instead, the people would turn to the largest, strongest tree nearby, one with branches thick enough to hold the weight of a body. That tree would become something more than nature. It would become a tool of death. These hanging trees stood in plain sight. In the United States, they were found in courthouse squares, at crossroads, even outside taverns where crowds gathered to watch. Some became infamous. There was the Goliad hanging tree in Texas, where dozens were executed in the 19th century. Or the Helena hanging tree in Montana, a place where frontier justice claimed life after life. But it wasn't just America. In Europe, ancient oaks and elms were used during witch trials, rebellions, and even political executions. Villages would remember the tree, sometimes for centuries, not as a part of nature, but as a symbol of fear. And here's the chilling detail. These trees weren't hidden away. Children played near them. Markets were held under them. People passed them every single day. Imagine buying bread in the morning, while the same tree in front of you once carried the body of a neighbor, a friend, or maybe someone wrongly accused. Over time, those trees became infamous landmarks, not because of their size, not because of their beauty, but because they carried stories of suffering, and those stories never seemed to fade. Now, history explains what happened under those branches, but it doesn't explain what people felt afterward. Because the truth is, once a tree became a hanging tree, it was never seen as ordinary again. People believed the violence, the fear, and the final moments of those who died didn't just vanish. They stayed. They clung to the tree. Think about it. A tree lives for centuries. It stands through storms, wars, and generations of people passing by. So what if it also remembers? What if every cry for mercy, every last breath, every moment of rage sank into the bark, the roots, the air around it? That's exactly what people believed. They said the souls of the condemned were trapped there, unable to leave, unable to rest. When the wind blew through the branches, it wasn't just wind, it was voices, whispers, pleas. On quiet nights, shadows were seen swaying as if invisible bodies still dangled from the limbs. And animals seemed to know it too. Dogs would refuse to go near the trees, even if their owners tried to drag them closer. Horses would buck and panic if forced past them. Even birds, the creatures that fill every other tree with nests, avoided the branches entirely, as if they sensed something unholy lived there. For locals, this wasn't superstition. It was a warning. You didn't linger near a hanging tree after dark. You didn't touch its bark. And you definitely didn't dare to stand beneath it when the night was still, because the echoes were said to be waiting, watching, and sometimes calling. Among all the stories surrounding hanging trees, one legend stands out above the rest. It's the one that dares people to test it. The one that says, if you want proof the echoes are real, all you have to do is wait until midnight. The legend goes like this. If you stand beneath a hanging tree at exactly 12 o'clock and you remain completely silent, you'll hear it. Not the rustling of leaves, not the groan of wood in the wind, but the slow, heavy creak of a rope. People say it's unmistakable, that soft, tightening sound, like a noose being pulled against bark. And once you hear it, the air begins to change. At first it feels heavy, harder to breathe, like the weight of something invisible pressing down on you. But if you stay longer, if you ignore the warning signs, it gets worse. Some claim the air begins to tighten around your throat, not just a chill, not just nerves, an actual pressure. As if the tree is remembering what it was built for, and deciding it wants one more soul to join the others. Over the years, countless thrill seekers have tried to prove or disprove this. Some left laughing, saying they felt nothing but the night air. But others left pale, coughing, clawing at their necks as though something had wrapped itself around them. A few even came away with red marks across their skin, shaped like rope burns. Coincidence or proof? That's the part no one can agree on. But what everyone agrees on is this. You don't challenge the tree twice, because maybe the first time it lets you go. The second time, it might decide you've stayed long enough. Legends of hanging trees aren't just whispered tales. They're tied to real places, real names, and real history. And every region seems to have at least one tree that locals swear carries the weight of the past. Take Texas, for example. In the town of Goliad, there's a massive oak known simply as the hanging tree. Back in the 19th century, it was used for executions, sometimes lawful, sometimes not. Locals say that if you walk by it at night, you'll hear footsteps circling the trunk, even when the ground is empty. Some people claim to see shadows swaying in the branches, though the tree has been bare for decades. Or consider Helena, Montana. Frontier justice was quick and brutal there, and the town's hanging tree was the center of it. Outlaws, thieves, and even men, accused without proof, all met their end beneath its branches. When the tree was finally cut down, people noticed something strange. The wood didn't feel right, heavy, as though it carried more than just age. Stories say the lumber milled from it brought misfortune, sickness, and accidents to anyone who tried to use it. It was as if the curse of the condemned lived on in every splinter. Europe, too, is full of these stories. In one village, there was an ancient oak where a woman accused of witchcraft was hanged. Even after hundreds of years, locals avoided it. They said if you touched the trunk at night, it felt warm, like it still carried the fire of her anger, the rage of her curse. And then there are the more personal stories. Parents warning children never to play near the tree at the edge of town. Not because of danger in the branches, but because too many kids came home crying, saying they saw people swinging when the tree was completely empty. Others said they heard voices calling their names, soft and broken, as though someone was whispering from just over their shoulder. What makes these stories so haunting is that they repeat across time and across cultures, different countries, different trees, but always the same pattern: death, silence, and echoes that refuse to fade. Of course, not everyone believes in curses, ghosts, or restless echoes. Skeptics say hanging tree stories are nothing more than fear mixed with imagination. They argue the creaking you hear at midnight is just the wind bending the branches. The whispers? Just leaves brushing against each other, the shadows swaying in the moonlight, tricks of tired eyes in the dark. Science even backs some of this up. Our M. And here's a thought that unsettles even the skeptics. Trees live for centuries, some for more than 1,000 years. They outlive entire generations. They stand, silent and unmovable, through wars, plagues, and storms. So if anything in this world could remember what happened around it, if anything could hold on to the emotions of the living and the dying, wouldn't it be something that ancient? Something with roots buried deep in the earth and branches stretching toward the sky? That's the question no one can answer, and maybe that's why the echoes are still whispered about today. The hanging tree is more than just a piece of wood and bark. It's a reminder of how fragile life is and how heavy history can become when it's carved into a single place. For some, it's just a tree. For others, it's a graveyard that never needed headstones. Some trees stretch high, reaching toward the sunlight. Others grow wide, sheltering generations beneath their shade. But thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.